Astral. Lost. In my mind, or someone else's. Shadows creep all around me, or thoughts I have never had and spells I've never cast. Magic. Remnants. Does it work? Or am I betrayed? Shadows creep all around me of things I have never seen, words I have never spoken. Escape. Found. Is it real? Or again, illusion? Shadows creep all around me of choices I have never made and lives I have never lived. Poem found scrawled on a wall in sigil, near a portal to the astral plane. Today we're going to talk about magic in the astral, though specifically about astral projection in our last video for our small series on the astral plane. One of the most powerful spells in a wizard's arsenal, it is one of the few level 9 spells that exist, but why is it so powerful? How on earth can astral projection can even stand on the same ground as wish or shape change? But oh, you will certainly see right after we talk about our sponsor today. This video is brought to you by Dungeons of Dragonheim, a new Kickstarter that just came out. Dungeons of Dragonheim is a 5th edition campaign for characters 1 to 13 set in the destroyed fallen city of Dragonheim, where a massive eldritch storm fell and decimated the place. Now you explore the urban wasteland finding otherworldly magic and hideous transformed monsters. How many campaigns do you see out there where you get to explore a post-apocalyptic disaster in a massive urban setting? Because this feels like a first to me. We're used to exploring ruins of old civilizations, yeah, but this campaign is set immediately after its collapse happened. I mean, it's only 15 years after its destruction. It's pretty new. Imagine how cool it would be to have an adventure set in Waterdeep, but it's chaos. Monsters roam the streets and meteors fall from the sky. It would be epic, right? Well, we do get that now. The beauty too is that the campaign is going to be non-linear urban exploration with open-ended conclusions based on the decisions that you make during the game. Basically, the ending changes depending on what you do. Check out the Kickstarter on the link below and see it for yourself. Dungeons of Dragonheim. Now, back to the video. The Astral Projection spell is a 9th level necromancy spell, it used to be alteration, with a 1 hour cast time and a basically sort of infinite duration. It goes like this. You and up to 8 willing creatures within range project your astral bodies into the astral plane. The material body you leave behind is unconscious and in a state of suspended animation. It doesn't need food or air and does not age. Your astral body resembles your mortal form in almost every way, replicating your game statistics and possessions. The principal difference is the addition of a silvery cord that extends from between your shoulder blades and trails behind you, fading to invisibility after 1 foot. This cord is your tether into the material body. As long as the tether remains intact, you can find your way home. If the cord is cut, something that can happen only when an effect specifically states that it does, your soul and body are separated, killing you instantly. Your astral form can freely travel through the astral plane and can pass through portals there leading to any other plane. If you enter a new plane or return to the plane you were on when you cast a spell, your body and possessions are transported along the silvery cord, allowing you to re-enter your body as you enter the new plane. A little confusing, but we'll get there. Your astral form is a separate incarnation from your real form. Any damage or other effects that apply to it have no effect on your physical body, nor do they persist when you return to it. The spell ends for you and your companions when you use your action to dismiss it. When the spell ends, the affected creature returns to its physical body and it awakens. The spell might also end early for you or one of your companions. A successful Dispel Magic spell used against an astral or physical body ends the spell for that creature. If the creature's original body or its astral form drops to 0 hit points, the spell ends for that creature. If the spell ends and the silver cord is intact, the cord pulls the creature's astral form back to its body, ending its state of suspended animation. If you are returned to your body prematurely, your companions remain in their astral forms and must find their own way back to their bodies, usually by dropping to 0 hit points. It's a very confusing spell. In fact, it's one of the most complicated spells that exist within Dungeons & Dragons. But this is what we would consider an archetypal spell in Dungeons & Dragons, which has been in the game literally since 1st edition. However, I see that many people have shared doubts as to what truly is its purpose. I mean, why would you or really any group of adventurers go so far as to wait until 17th level in order to cast this spell? And I mean, really, why would you? Plane Shift is a 7th level spell that, as long as you have the right tuned fork, you can simply teleport to any plane of existence within the multiverse. You merely need to specify that you want to, for example, go to the city of Glass in the elemental plane of water, and off you go. And since it is a 7th level spell, it is considerably easier to obtain than Astral Projection, and you can get this as early as 13th level. Then there's Gate, which is a much more powerful spell, being a 9th level spell, but that allows you to do the same thing as Plane Shift, but without the need to use the attuned fork. It is also much more potent because it not just teleports you and your friends, but it actually opens up a portal that lasts for a whole minute that anyone can use to follow you through. So you could presumably even teleport a whole crew with you, or a small battalion of followers, maybe a small army. Further, you can be extremely specific with this spell and even name a creature and basically open up a portal right beside that creature that you're looking for, or maybe pull that creature up to you. So having these extremely powerful spells at your discretion, Plane Shift and Gate, why in the nine hells would you ever cast Astral Projection, knowing full well that Astral Projection will not directly take you where you want to go, and instead will basically force you to go through the astral plane before finding the right color pool that will then lead you to your actual destination? Well, see, the answer is protection, but way more protection than you actually think you're getting. The outer planes and inner planes are really scary places for mortal folk, and the reality is that you'd be a fool to travel to them without being fully prepared. So this is the thing. When you cast Astral Projection, you create an astral self that gets sent right into the astral. This astral self is a representation of you that really is just a translation of your being into the realm of thought. This astral self is formed with a silvery cord that comes out of your back and basically connects your astral self with your real physical self, which is still in the material world in a catatonic state. If you get hurt in your astral form, your body does not get hurt, and if you die in your astral self, the silver cord will simply yank your spiritual self back into your real body. Now, generally speaking, you should be safe. Once your spiritual self comes back, you might fall into a long rest and then wake up drowsy and weakened, but that's basically typically it. And sometimes, rarely though, you can fall into a coma, and other times you might actually die, but look, generally speaking, it is safe. What many people don't know is that this protection from death actually continues even if you move your astral self towards an outer or inner plane. So for example, if you move astrally through the astral plane, you find a color pool that leads you towards the inner plane of fire, what actually happens is the inner plane of fire will then create a body for you based on your spiritual representation. This body will still have a silver cord coming out of it. This is not your real body. Your real body is still in the prime material realm. Again, what happens is the plane of fire in this case will literally create a physical representation of your fake astral body for your spirit to use. Now, what's interesting is that because this new body was created by the plane itself, you actually become a native of that plane for as long as you use that body. So, for our example here, you would be considered a native to the elemental plane of fire. This means that you would become completely immune to fire, and you would be able to basically breathe in the fire in the plane as air. This property applies to every single plane, so if you enter into the plane of Earth astrally, then the body that you're given by the plane would be able to freely move through the Earth and even see through the Earth. Any properties that an elemental might get from being on the plane, you basically get. I mean, for all intents and purposes, you kind of become an elemental. This is the true power of astral projection, important because nobody in their right minds would teleport themselves into the abyss with their true bodies. I mean, that's actually insane. But with this, you can fight any demon lord you desire without having an actual fear of permanent death, or perhaps worse, of succumbing to the madness of the plane. Now, of course, the caveat is that with astral projection, you do have to project yourself into the astral plane first, and then literally float your way into a color pool, pass through it, teleport into the first layer of a plane, and then physically walk the plane until you get to where you want to go. For example, in the case of the Abyss, using astral projection, you basically would be forced to appear on the first layer and then have to physically travel each and every layer after layer after layer to get to the point where you want to go, whereas with a portal spell, you could teleport exactly where you want to be, but hey man, nothing avoids beating permadeath. Now, there are actually also other restrictions at play here that the 5th edition Player's Handbook did not tell you, some really interesting ones actually, which we will talk about in just a second. But first, I do want to point out that, just to be clear, that you don't have to astrally project yourself in order to get to the astral. I know that this is a question many of you have. You can enter the plane physically, like for example with a gate or a plane shift spell, or you can do it by astrally projecting yourself. On one scenario, you are physically in the plane and all the properties that we talked about in the last 3 videos would apply to you. Or you can astrally project through the astral projection spell, which would then bring upon you an interesting set of disadvantages and advantages. The first thing that you need to know, and this is super important and actually wild that the Player's Handbook did not mention this, but basically you're creating an astral translation of yourself, which means you don't actually get to bring everything that you have with you into your astral journey. When you project yourself astrally, you only get to bring magical items with you. Because the astral plane is a plane of magic, you can create translations of things of magic, as magic imprints itself on the plane of thoughts. But mundane things without magic do not create echoes in here, which means they cannot be translated. Now, the magic on the item does not need to be powerful or even useful for that matter. As long as it has any kind of enchantment or magic cast upon it, it should work. Literally, all you have to do sometimes is to cast the light cantrip on your sword and then you could bring it with you. Like, it's that simple. Or perhaps a small prestidigitation on your clothes to make them smell like flowers. That would also work. It doesn't require much at all. But if you don't, then you would basically appear literally naked on the astral, if you're only wearing mundane things. If you don't enchant your underwear with something, then yeah, it's not going to be a modest trip for you basically. Now, once you do, the items will translate themselves perfectly within the astral plane and do exactly what they would do on the physical plane. If your sword does slashing damage in the real world, the Realm of Thoughts would replicate that exactly for you. In an interesting vein, you can also pick up items in your astral form and then bring them back with you, back into your real physical form. And those items would appear then as actual real items. This applies for as long as you can physically carry the item in your astral self. So if you can carry, say, a big chest full of gold while astrally, when you do end the spell and come back to your physical form, then that big chest full of gold will also appear before you. Now, as you can tell, there are many benefits, but also a great many disadvantages to being astrally. For one, you actually have no idea what is happening to your real physical body while you're traveling. It's just how damage done to your astral body does not reflect to your real body, so it happens that damage done to your real body is not felt by your astral self, which means you have no idea whether or not your real body is even in danger. This is why many astral travelers always make sure to leave a guardian with their body to protect them. And the only way that you could ever tell that something has happened to your real body would be, well, when your real body dies, because it would show to you as your silver cord basically disappearing. But obviously by then, it would have already been too late and then you would die in 1 minute. At this point in time, there wouldn't be much that you could do other than to make peace with your death, knowing that you only have that 1 minute to live. Now, there is one thing that you can do that could actually save you. It's a little bit of a trick. And that would be to quickly find a color pool and go through it, because then you would basically appear on the plane that it leads you, and then that plane would create a planar body for you and you would basically get to live. It is an interesting cheat on the way that magic works, as your spirit would then have a body to possess that you could basically use to live through. Though of course, at that point, it makes sense that your silver cord would not come back since your actual real body is dead. So this would mean that if you then were to die in your astral planar body, you would die for real, but this does give you a way to live on. You, of course, would not be able to go back to the astral. You would not be able to represent yourself in the astral without an astral silver cord, and you cannot get that because your body's dead, so you're stuck in the outer planes. Or inner planes, depending on where you go. Now, a few interesting things to happen when you do bring other people with you, which is something that you can do with the astral projection spell, is that you basically can use your own power to project up to 8 additional creatures to go on the journey with you. Now, the thing is that the rules here are a bit weird. You see, the Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, and Dungeon Master's Guide are meant to be setting agnostic. The spells that you find in here are supposed to be generic versions of the spells that you could then use to apply to any setting, regardless of where you're playing. You know, Dungeons & Dragons doesn't know if you're playing the Forgotten Realms, or Greyhawk, or Everon, or Ravenloft. They basically have to create these generic spells that could apply to any setting. There are a lot of assumptions that are made that assume that you're probably playing on certain settings, but generally they keep them as agnostic as possible. Now, we do have the de facto setting for planar travel in Dungeons & Dragons, which is Planescape. It basically was a setting created specifically to world build on the ethereal, astral, inner, and outer planes for the Dungeons & Dragons game. This was created in 2nd edition, and since then, the only books that we have gotten that talk about the planes are the Manual of the Planes books, which basically just parrot Planescape with perhaps some inconsequential small changes here and there. In essence, everything that we use for planar stuff has relied and has always relied on the Planescape setting. That's basically the gist of it. So anyways, according to Planescape rules, the way that it should work is when you bring along friends through the astral projection spell, there's actually only one main chord, and that is the chord of the spellcaster who casted the spell. The caster and his friends are all then connected through the main chord that connects their physical bodies. If this main chord is severed, then everybody dies. Now, from the body of the astral projecting mage, multiple chords would then come out that link to all of the other friends. If these individual chords would be severed, then only the individual it is linked to will die, and then everyone else would be safe. This is an important distinction to make because the only reason everyone is here is through the power of the mage who originally casted the spell, and they are essentially at the mercy of that wizard. That being said, the chords can stretch as far as you want. Remember that a distance doesn't really exist in this plane, so you can go as far as you want from your mage. Just know that you cannot actually go back to your real body unless your mage goes back with you. If your mage dies, then everyone gets yanked back with him. This is an important difference from the 5th and 3rd edition versions of the spell, which basically allow for each person to have their own chord. I just want to cover this a little bit because there is obviously, like I mentioned, a difference between what Planescape says it does and then what 3rd and 5th edition says it does, so you can take from this whatever you wish. In any case, the silver cord is visible for only a few feet coming out from your back, then it disappears into the background. Now, even though you can see the cord on your back, you cannot actually interact with it in any way. It is, for all intents and purposes, intangible and not physical. No attacks can be made to it, and it cannot be targeted by any spell or effect unless the spell specifically says it can. To this day, there are only about 4 ways known for something to be able to interact with your silver cord. One would be through the psychic winds, a phenomena that is found within the astral where lost thoughts combine together into a wave of thoughts that almost forms something like a storm. This we call, of course, psychic winds, which, if strong enough, can and will destroy your silver cord, killing you on the spot. 2 is through the fabled silver swords of the Githyanki, legendary weapons which have the ability to pierce and cut through silver cords, killing astrally projecting adventurers instantly. It is said that the conduits that connect the prime and the outer planes that pass through the astral can also be severed with these silver swords, lending credence to the legends that conduits and silver cords are actually very similar. The legends actually say that the first mage who invented the spell astral projection created it by studying the conduits, which is an interesting side note. 3. Legendary monsters like the Astral Dreadnought are also known to have the ability to bite through the astral cord and break it. And lastly, 4. The power of gods can also destroy the silver cord, though rarely would it be the case that a god would wield its power in the astral plane, generally considered to be a no man's land for gods who wish the place to remain a neutral ground. An astral self who has had its silver cord severed from its real body instantly perishes and can only be recovered through a wish spell. The permanent magic items held by the astral self will then float on the astral sea, while those items that had momentary enchantments casted by the mage will then lose their enchantments and then instantly rot away. Remember that even though time doesn't really pass on the astral, magical effects from spells still have a normal duration. It's only potions that can last permanently. The astral form with a silver cord severed would then simply dissolve into the plane in about a minute. The last really interesting disadvantage that actually many people don't think about when they project astrally is that their bodies are left without a spirit in them, something that a few monsters can actually take advantage of. There are a few monsters, especially those who make their lair in the astral, who make a habit of stealing bodies through possession, in a similar way as a ghost might possess you. When a ghost possesses you, it is typically an imperfect effect since, well, the ghost is basically struggling with your own spirit for dominion over your body. This struggle typically makes it obvious that the body is is being possessed by something that should not be there. This does not happen when you leave your body without your spirit, of course. Certain creatures from the astral and even ghosts themselves can very much possess your empty body back at home and take them for themselves basically permanently, which completely screws you over. And many people don't know this, but for as long as something is possessing your real physical body, you would not be able to return to it from your astral self, leaving you permanently stranded in the outer planes. Alright guys, that's it. The 4 videos on the astral plane. 2 videos just explaining what the astral plane was. 1 video just talking about dead gods. And then, of course, the astral projection spell, which is a huge spell within the, I don't know, the history of Dungeons & Dragons. I mean, it is one of the few 9th level spells that exist. And it's one of the few that have existed basically since the beginning of Dungeons & Dragons. And it's interesting because it's always been that spell that I guess people just don't use, right? When you read it for the first time and you see that it's like several paragraphs long and it just seems all complicated, it's just very easy to disregard it, I suppose. But here it is. Hopefully I can do it a little bit of justice. Now, I would like to personally thank my Patreon supporters: Barry Mascan, 5e Magic Shop, Morgan Johnson, Rusty Rain, Doc Feeder, Walker Motley, The Great Codini, Terry Culp, Ziran King, Omega Scales, Ozol, Alex Cookson, Benjamin Bosters, Folky951, Ordoric, Prince Daylight Morning Crown, Sabim Korshaft, Solarensis, Thomas Hunt, Bushido Burrito, Nathan McComb, Soulless Rider, Werewolven Games, Lost Crusader, Mr. Salty, Stalia, Brian Camp, Chad Aga, Steven, JD Green, Olaf Clap, Treb909, Tony RC, Famine52, George Fortland, Sovereign Mind, Trevor Hess, Draglogia5, The Living Guild Pack, Michael Walker, Streeblow, Describe, Herbert Johnson, The Wizard's Vault, Dragon19, Guy97, James the Perverted, Shuddycast, Hiram at Questing Under Their Influence Podcast, Horrorbound, Jeffrey A. Alexander, Jesse Feliciano, and Anicon the Wolf of Shadows for supporting me on Patreon at the $25 level. If you would like to support me as well, then please head on over to patreon.com/MrRex to support. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll be taking a week off to do some personal work, but then I will see you all later, so see ya next time.